Okay. Hi, Rod. Hi, Susan. Is everybody hearing me now? Yep, 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 yep. Good. That means your speakers are working and my microphone is working, which is all really good. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to be switching between my slide presentation and Lightroom, so you don't have to stare at my face the whole time. You can see my face, right? Yes, yes, yes. Beautiful. Thank you, Keith. Love you, mate. Good to have you here. So let's begin. Everybody filled out the poll at the bottom of the screen. Actually, let me just share screen here. Welcome to my How to Print with Lightroom CC, hosted by me, Anthony Epps. And in this webinar, I'm going to show you how to print from Lightroom. Okay, printing is a bit technical. There's some things that you have to do to get it right. If you look down here at the profiles, the polls, nobody's ever created a custom ICC profile. I couldn't recommend making one of these done for you. It's absolutely makes your life almost painless. I'm going to show you how to do that and how to apply it in Lightroom. Okay. 60% of you have calibrated your monitor. That's good. The other 40% who haven't, don't even try to get color accuracy until you get it done. All right. And often 10% often print their photos, occasionally 50%, hardly ever 40%, but everybody's printed a little bit. All right. All right. So this webinar is going to be about 90 minutes. I left a space for 90 minutes, but that's including questions. My presentation is probably going to be about tops 40 minutes. I only got like 20 slides. I don't want to bore you to death with slides, but it's going to be 3 easy steps that you need to kind of to take to get color accurate prints. Okay. And in this webinar, this is what people do. They have webinars and then they make offers on products they have. So I'm not going to hide that. I am going to offer you a 15% discount on my Lightroom classes that are coming up. Okay. So sales pitch out of the way. My online classes are pretty cool. I've got some people here who've taken them before who could say how great they are. Phil, Phoebe. Yeah, so let's begin. Okay. So what is it about prints that we love so much? And why do we want them? Because they're tangible. I think, for me, being a fine art photographer and being an exhibitor in my past and making books, the print is the final stage of perfection. It's that state where I feel like, wow, my photo is finally complete. It's not complete when I take it. It's not complete after I've been in Lightroom and done all my adjustments. But when I have it in my hand and it's something I can put on the wall and admire, just the textures and the colors in a new way, that feels like it's complete. And, Eugene Smith is really, I know a lot of you know him. Some of you may not, but he was a fanatical printer of his work, and he printed everything, even the bad stuff. And he would print it until it was, this is all black and white stuff back in the 70s and 80s and 60s. A proper print is the completed photograph, right? And I truly believe that is the way you can most appreciate your work. As an artist, you want it to look great, and the final product is the penultimate version of your work is the print. And I'd say the ultimate thing is like getting it framed and mounted and giving it the respect it deserves. So 3 steps. The first step is color calibration. Let me just toggle back here to see if anybody's asked a question. Okay, no questions. Hi, Rosemary. Hi, Richard. All right, let's go back here. Okay, color calibration. Now, color calibration refers to your monitor and it refers to your printer. All right, these 2 things, if they're not calibrated, then you're going to probably be really dissatisfied with the results you get. almost without a doubt, okay? And the number one reason people are really disappointed with their printing is because their monitor is not calibrated, right? If you don't have a calibrated monitor, then you're not going to get the colors that you want to see, okay? You can't expect to get good color reproduction and accuracy without first calibrating your monitor. I mean, if you've got a laptop, you can still get it calibrated. There's ways to do it for Macs and PCs. You can adjust the gamma. But the best way to do it is to get like a tool, a calibration tool like the Spider 5. I've got some links down here if you're interested in getting one of those. If you do, 20 prints a month, or you want to build a portfolio or something like that, these are well worth the money. You don't have to have a really expensive monitor. You just have to have a decent monitor, one that's not too old, the one that's, the color phosphors haven't worn out and still fairly bright and can hold, you don't have to calibrate it every 4 hours. When monitors get old, they lose their brightness, and they struggle to keep the gamut that they were built with, okay? And there are some online tools that can help you get pretty close. Like if you don't want to invest in a calibration tool, there's some ways you can get really close, pretty close. I'm not going to say really accurate, but you can get decently close with these online tools. And this link will just show you. It's a pretty good article I found that just gives you some charts and graphs that you can adjust your contrast and your gamma and stuff like that with. All right. I'm going to keep switching back here. Okay. Let me just turn off my video. There we go. So let me I'll paste these. Remind me to paste these back into the chat when we're done. And this video, by the way, this webinar will be available to you. If you miss some, it'll be available online. You'll get a link in your email if you want to watch it again. So if you missed anything, it'll be there for you pretty soon, according to this Web Ninja service. It's all being recorded in the cloud right now. Okay, so monitor calibration. If you have any questions about that and how to do it, go ahead and ask them, and I'll go back through the questions and answer them before I go on to the next section, okay? And the next thing I noticed, the next thing is printer calibration. Now this is, most people don't even know about this and they completely miss it. But this is a really critical part of color calibration, okay? Because what happens is, I mean, you print, you're looking at your screen, and your screen is made of color diodes, right? You've got, it's lights basically. It's red, green, and blue dots that project light into your eyes, right? And then you've got, and what's happening is a difference in technology, okay? We've got the digital screen that is projecting RGB, right, into our eyes, and we're seeing vivid, beautiful colors that are very bright and saturated, right? And then we have the physical print, which is made with inks and dyes that can print a whole gamut of colors, right? And what we're missing is that translation from the screen to the print, okay? And it's that translation, it's this conversion that people are having the problem with, right? And how we control that conversion in the digital language that controls that is ICC files. Okay, so ICC stands for the International Color Consortium. It's a bunch of scientists in lab coats who've standardized this conversion process, so we can all, for example, if I'm using an Adobe RGB ICC profile, which we all have in Lightroom and Photoshop, right? And I have a guy at my lab who's going to print my stuff, and he also has the ICC Adobe RGB profile. If we're both calibrated, our screens are both calibrated, then we're going to be seeing the same colors. So what I see on my screen, he's going to see on his screen, and I'll get an accurate print. That's how that works, okay? So it's a standardized color conversion, so we can both see the same things when you're sending stuff out. And the ICC files, they refer to, when you're printing, when you have a printer and you have inks and you have paper, right? You need to tell Lightroom what paper and ink you're using, right? So when you get an ICC file custom made, you're saying, I'm using the Hanimler rag paper with these Epson inks. And once you get that profile made, Lightroom is going to know what colors, what kind of conversion it needs to make your print match the screen, okay? If everybody kind of clear on that so far? I know it's a bit confusing. So monitor calibration is the first step, guys. You got to get your monitor calibrated or get it pretty close. These are some tools to do it with. And these links here, right? So if you're using like a Permajet matte paper, right? You can go to the greatprinters.com in the US, right? And what happens is these guys, you set up your printer, you follow their instructions really closely, right? They'll have these really kind of intricate instructions, and you'll download a color chart from them, right? And then you print out this color chart, you stick it in an envelope, and you mail it to them. And then a couple days later, they'll email you an ICC profile for your printer for that specific paper and that specific ink set, right? So if you start using a different paper, you're going to need to do this again. They're about 40 quid each, $40 each. I mean, you can get them done for a lot more money from some other places that do some really advanced, really deep colorimetry, or so. They use a color meter on it, and they color analyzing it, right? But these are really, really good price. I use colorfill.co.uk for like 4 different papers, and I plug that into my Lightroom under profiles. I've got my monitor calibrated, and the prints come out perfect. It's basically that easy. But you know, you got to get the monitor profiled, and you got to get your printer profiled. And once you have those done, I'll show you what you do to your images and step 2. Okay. Let me just go back to questions real quick here. Okay. Do I have any questions here? How can I produce a file for Photolab to print? I want to print with a lot of margins of mounting. Okay, Jeremy, I'll get to that on the second section, okay? These links here I will also put in the text, so you can just copy and paste them if you're interested in getting these profiles done. I would highly recommend you guys do this. I mean, it's a lot cheaper investment than buying the Spider calibration tool. It's quite critical. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a lot of money on burning ink and paper. So this kind of pays for itself in a very short amount of time. So when you get these ICC profiles, right, you'll get they'll send them to you in a zip file, and you'll have like Epson 4940.icc. Okay. What you have to do if you want these to show up in Lightroom or Photoshop is you have to put them in these folders here, right? If you're on a Mac, you got to put it in libraries, printers, color sync, profiles. And Windows, you got to put it in Windows, System 32, spool, drivers, and color. And once you put it in that folder, it will show up in all your Adobe programs and anything other programs that use ICC profiles, okay? Yes, Susan, that was greatprinters.com. All right. Yes, good. Everybody's confirming that I haven't totally destroyed this yet. Okay, so when I print at home, Keith asks, with his Canon Pixma, which has Print Studio Pro, which Lightroom exports to, in there it has all the paper profiles, so I should be good, right? Well, I would say, Keith, in a perfect world, yeah, that would be the case, but that is a paper profile for your printer, and that's going to get you pretty close. Yeah, but that when you get it from a manufacturer like that, the paper profiles aren't specific to, they're not going to be that great for the printer, right? They're going to get you in the ballpark. That's what I find is like they're not perfect. And you know, when you spend all that time working on your art and making the colors just like you want, and you get a paper manufacturer's ICC profile for that paper, it's pretty close. It's pretty good. I mean, you know, you're within, if we want to talk percentages, you'll be at 10, 15%, maybe 20% off. And sometimes you nail it, but it's kind of like, you know, roll the dice. What I'm talking about is when you get a profile from one of these guys who does that, like Color Fill or greatprinters.com, as they nail your printer and your paper and your ink combinations just perfect. Yeah, and that's much more accurate than getting a manufacturer's profile, which is kind of generic, you know? Did that answer that question? Okay. Jeremy, how can I produce a file for a Photolab to print? I want to print with a lot of margin for mounting. All right, I'll show you that in the last section, Jeremy, okay? All right, so quickly, I'm going to go back to step 2. All right. Anybody have any questions about calibration, about how to do your monitor and how to do the ICC profiles for your printer? Okay. All right. So soft proofing. Okay. So what is soft proofing, right? So hard proofing is an actual print. Yeah, it's a hard copy. You hold it in your hands and that's a hard copy. What soft proofing is, it's a fairly new feature that photographers have been wanting to have in Lightroom for quite a while, and they put it in a while back. And what it is it simulates what your print is going to look like before you print it. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to, okay, let me just, yeah. So soft proofing is found in the develop module. And once you go to the develop module, if you hit the S key, it enables soft proofing. Okay. If you don't see that, the toolbar, you can hit T and the toolbar pops up. All right. And when you get into soft proofing, you're going to see profile and you're going to see rendering intent. Profile is where you put your ICC profile that these guys made for you. Okay. And then rendering intent, which I'll explain, and then simulate paper and ink. The simulate paper and ink, I would just ignore it for right now. What it does is it just kind of flattens the image out like it was not being lit from behind, like a screen, to kind of like simulate with paper, the dullness of paper. I find that it doesn't really kind of accurately render the blacks or the mid to high blacks well. So I never use it. It's better almost just to make a print and then make your adjustments from there, because it just doesn't seem very useful. Okay. And if you've done lots of, if you've pushed the saturation up to 50 and you've done lots of clarity in your stuff, in your images, you're probably going to run into some issues when you go to print. Let me go to Lightroom now. Now for the fun part. All right, so here I am in the develop module, right? Let me just turn here. I'll turn soft proofing off for a second. Turn these off. Okay, so I got a shot here from Venice. You can see it's very, very saturated. Everybody can see this. So I'm in my develop module. I've got my color work all done, and you know, it looks great on the screen. It's like, wow, look at those colors, right? But I know from experience that I'm not going to be able to print all those colors. My print is not going to be that vivid. It's not going to be that saturated, right? Because I'm looking at it rear lit by light. And you know, when I have that print in my hand, it's not going to be so bright. So what soft proofing does is you hit S or you click right down here and you get your soft proofing module up. Watch here under the histogram. When I hit soft proofing, you'll see you get a little dialog box coming up here, right? So I've got profile up here and I've got intent and I've got the simulate paper and ink. For some reason that's not working right now. Probably if I go like this. If I pick a paper profile, I get simulate paper and ink. And you can see that just kind of flattens the image. But we're not going to use that right now because I don't recommend you even try it. Let's just stick with what works, okay? Okay, so this is what we do. We hit soft proofing, right? And then in the histogram, toggle, I'm going to toggle this on and off by hitting S, right? So that's off and that's on. And I want you to take a look at the histogram. This is off up here in the top right. This is off and this is on. And you can see how dramatically it changes the histogram, okay? And then in the top right box here, we have, if I hover over that, you'll see it says show destination gamut warning, right? So if I click that on, what's going to happen? Watch when I hit, I'll saturate this up a bit, okay? So everything we see here, right? That is my gamut warning. And what is that? What that's telling me for this is my custom Anthony Epson 2880 Permajet Oyster paper, okay? That's the one I usually use for like my daily printing, okay? And then I have a Hahnemuller, I know I'm saying that wrong, right? Epson 2880 bamboo paper, okay? And you can see every time, this is for a different paper ink set. And if I go to the photo rag, you can see it changes the color a little bit more. And here's watercolor. This is a Permajet watercolor radiant white. Wow, really different, right? And it looks absolutely terrible. The adjustments I made to this paper I'd have to go back into the develop module and really tweak it so it didn't look so horrible. But the one I usually use, like this Epson 2880 Permajet Oyster paper, which is a nice kind of satin finish. It looks pretty good. But when I hover over this this box here that says the gamut warning, right? So anything that's red that I see here is a color that is out of gamut. My printer is not able to reproduce that colors. So what it's going to do is it's going to print the nearest color to that color, right? So basically what it's doing is going to desaturate my image. And if I go over to the other side, and I've got, it says show gamut, monitor gamut warning, all right? These are the colors that my monitor are not able to reproduce, right? So I'm not actually seeing the actual colors that would be printed. That's not a good thing either. Sometimes it's not as dramatic as the color gamut warning, okay? And you see when I got both of them on there, it turns kind of pink. So let me show you what you do when you have this kind of scenario, when you just have so much saturation, right? What you usually want to do, save the questions for later, guys, because I just type them in and I'll get to them, because I just want to get through this without having to keep switching back. So when you have this kind of scenario where you have all these colors out of gamut, not good, because your printer's not going to be able to print any of this stuff, right? Let me just toggle it on and off. So I've got this yellowish orange kind of color. It looks great, but I hover over there and my printer is not able to create that color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to hue, saturation, and luminance, because it just seems like it's the yellow that is the issue here, right? My blues look pretty good. Apparently my printer could make these very kind of vivid blues, but it's having trouble with the yellows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to hue, saturation, and luminance, and I'm going to grab the saturation tool, right? So I've got the saturation tool here, you can see. I'm just going to go over the yellow, or the area that's affected, that's not printable, and I'm just going to drag. I'm going to click. It's going to disappear when I click, and I'm going to just drag it down just a little bit. And you can see the slider over here. Watch the orange here, right? Just a little bit until all that red is gone. I can go right about, just starting to come in there. You can see it on the boat here. Yeah. So maybe I'll just drag it down a little bit until that's gone. Yeah. And then I've got some in the tree here, but this is green. So I'm going to also use the tool, go in the green, and it's going to hopefully grab green. And there we go. All right. So now I'm gonna hit S again. You can see that there's a little bit of difference there, right? This is without soft proofing, and this is with soft proofing, okay? And that's how you color correct. So now with my Epson profile in here, this ICC profile, with my printer set up, I'm good to go. I would now, well, I've got the bit of blue up here. I don't really have to worry about that so much, but I can drag that down also. And then I'm looking pretty good. All right, let me go to the slide now, and I'll talk about rendering intent and what that is, okay? If we go to Lightroom, right, you'll see, let me get another image here, one that I haven't done anything with yet. Okay, so something, the other one was already a proof copy. So when you first get an image into Lightroom, right, and you click soft proofing, turn this off here, and you make an adjustment, it's going to say create a proof copy, right? That wasn't on the other one because it was already a proof copy, right? Because you can see the little flag down here, the little dog ear. That means it's a virtual copy. So when you first bring an image in, original image that's not a virtual copy, it's going to have this little bar up here that says create proof copy. And what that allows you to do is create a virtual copy, so you're not messing with your original image, right? You're just working on a copy. So I create proof copy, and there it is, right? I've got two proofs and my original image there, right? So I'm going to work with the proof copy. Let me get this back to my ICC profile. And so we have, under our profile, we have a thing called intent, all right? Now intent is telling the printer how to interpret the photo, okay? And it works like this. A lot of people get confused by rendering intent. I was until a short while ago. Let me just say right off the bat that 90% of the time, you're gonna want to use perceptual intent over relative, okay? Relative is when you have fewer colors that are out of gamut, like unprintable, and it will preserve all the colors that are in gamut, and the ones that are not in gamut, it kind of flattens them. So say you had a woman in a purple dress, and you had some very kind of fine detail, very fine shades of purple, and going through light purple to medium purple, right? If you use relative doing that, what it's going to do, it's going to flatten that into one color, and you might start to lose some very kind of intricate detail that's created by the shading of the color, okay? But what perceptual will do is it will keep that detail, and it will go to the nearest color that it can print and use that color instead of flattening the image. When I say flattening, I mean just making it all into the printable, everything that's in gamut, okay? Like this picture here. If you have many colors that are out of gamut, it tries to preserve the visual relationship between the colors. And all the colors that can't be printed, it shifts them to ones that can be printed, okay? Really intense colors, like these blues here, would be, you know, in Lightroom, they would be completely red and out of gamut. So what it does is it picks the nearest color that it's able to print, and that it also preserves the detail. So 90% of the time you're going to pick perceptual. Like this image here, we've got this red dress on this lady, and I'm going to put it on sRGB, click on out of gamut colors. All right, so this is my screen sRGB. This is like, sRGB is like what you would create JPEG files to share in Facebook or social media. You want to use sRGB, okay? Let's see what some of these paper profiles do, like the photo rag. Turn this off. Turn that up. And you can see like this photo rag is a matte paper. You can see how it's kind of flattened out the contrast a bit compared to this Epson paper, which kind of brings in the contrast a bit more, right? So it's kind of simulating the paper itself, which is a pretty cool thing. Soft proofing is great. What it can save you money if you get it to look fine on the screen without any kind of like the blues, you know, out of gamut colors. Like if I was using, I'd go to print right now. I wouldn't worry about the little blue here so much. I could probably get rid of that with just a bit of, I don't want to desaturate the whole thing. Just go back here, grab this tool, and pull that down just a little bit. And the thing about it is, what you look at this picture and you go, and you look at the original, I'll go to the original here, right? And the original looks really brilliant. Looks a lot more punchy. Yeah, but that's for screen. And this one here looks a bit flat, but that's, remember, it's simulating what the paper is going to look like, and paper is flatter than the screen. So it's not bad. If you think like you're losing all this red color, you're not really. It's just something that's not, it's just unprintable. And you've got to remember that you're working with two different types of technology, analog technology and digital technology, okay? Analog being the print, of course. I can really pump up the color on this one. I don't know. Actually, soft proofing's not on. There we go. I'm gonna bring that down a little bit. And now that's ready to print, all right? All right, so once you get there, step one, you calibrate your monitor and your printer, okay? And then we do step two, which is soft proofing. Before I go to step three, anybody have any questions about soft proofing? All right. Soft proofing is pretty simple, guys. You know, you get your image, you bring it in here, you click on soft proofing, you turn on these warning signals here, the warning indicators. Like I said before, the you probably missed this part, but the one on the left here is colors that my monitor is not able to reproduce, okay? So if I'm sending this to a bureau or somebody else to print, I want to make sure that I get rid of the blue here too, okay? So once again, I would go down to saturation and click on the blue and come down there and like so, until I get it looking pretty good, right? The green here is also a little bit, there you go. If you get a tiny little bit in there, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, honestly, it's barely noticeable. Most of the time, these little tiny things you will never notice, okay? So we got that. So this is, I suppose this is my final print. And if I go before and after, you can see over here on the left was my master, right? That's my, I hit Y. So I'm looking at both of the prints at the same time. Let me just get rid of that there. All right, so this was my original on the left, and this is the print I will get out of my printer on the right. This is my proof preview on the right, and this is my master. So this is the one I did all my saturation and color adjustments to, and this is what actually I'm going to print. So, I mean, this is great for Facebook. It looks fantastic on the left here, but if I was going to print, I'd need to make this adjustment for this ICC profile with the printer and paper I'm using, and this is about all I could get out of it. Okay, I can't get the one on the left, but I can get the one on the right. Everybody kind of follow that? All right, still with me, guys? All right, so let's go on. Let me just get the tabs here. Okay, so the step 3 is the output module. Okay, this is our printer settings and Lightroom settings, and how we're going to configure these things to talk to each other before we hit print. Okay, because if you do that, if you don't do this correctly and you hit print, you're most likely going to be really dissatisfied with the print that comes out of the printer. All right, it's the final step, and this is where we're going to input our ICC files and our rendering intent before we go to print. You have your paper type, which says media type, and then let me just use the pointer. So we've got our paper type. So if you've got a photo glossy paper, you put it in there. If you're printing color or black and white, you put it in there. You're going to want your print quality to never say speed when you're doing color photos. Okay, you drop down this box, it's going to say quality or high quality or fine art or photo quality. Okay, never on speed. Just select the highest quality you can get. Okay, but the most important adjustment is this one. Unless you have a really high-end printer that has an amazing software that comes with it that tells you to use your printing software, like if you have one of them 42-inch Epson printers, you probably want to keep this on and let your printer control all that stuff. We want to turn color adjustment off, and we want Lightroom to control the ICC file and all the color management. Okay, so we don't want our printer to do any color management. So make sure this is off. Yeah, before you go to print, we would go to our print module and make sure that this is off. Okay, and then we select our paper size, and then we say okay, and we're done. Does anybody have a dialog box that's different than this one? I mean, Canon will have something very similar, and you will also have a mode that will have off, no color adjustment. Okay. All right, so let me show you how to how to make a master proof copy. I think Jeremy was asking about. He keeps printing. He's got his monitor calibrated, but prints are still coming out a bit too dark. And this is what you can do to fix that. Okay, when you come down to the print job setting here, all right, you can have print to JPEG file or go to your printer, okay? And if you go to your printer, this is going to output the print, okay? You get this dialog. If my printer was connected, it would be here somewhere, right? But I just have Adobe PDF as a printer, right? So I can go to the printer or I can go to a JPEG file. What I want to do now is go to a JPEG file, and I'm going to show you how to make a master proof. Okay, so if you get it all right, you know, you've done your soft proofing, yet it's not coming out perfectly because your monitor is not really well calibrated. You can use this in combination with all the other techniques to help you fine tune your print. Okay, so what you do is you grab an image, right? I'll use this one here, right? And I'll go down to here to print adjustment, right? And what I want to do is I'm going to ignore the color management for a while, because what I'm going to do is just going to make a print proof, right? So I'm going to do one. I'm going to go print the file, right? Print adjustment. I'm going to have I'm going to say 20. I'm going to put that on 20, right? And I'm going to say print the file. And I'm just going to save a file. So I'm going to call this 20% brightness, right? And I'll save it there. Yeah. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go 40 on print brightness, okay? And I'm going to save that file, and I'm going to call this 40% brightness. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to call it 60% brightness. Let me make sure yeah, got it. 60% brightness, right? All right, so now I've got my 20, my 40, and my 60, okay? And then I'm going to turn this down to 0. Oops, 0, double click that. Right? And I'm going to say print the file, and I'm going to call it original. Call it original 1. So we got original in there. All right. Okay, so I've created 4 JPEG files. I didn't go to print to my printer. I created 4 JPEG files. So I'm going to go back to my library module. I'm going to import those. I click import. Let me just go here, photos, webinar files. And there they are, right? So I'm going to import all those. Yeah, and I'm going to select these 4 that I did, right? And then I'm going to go to the print module, and I'm going to say 4 up. There's a 2x2 4 wide. Where is it? 2x2 cells, okay? And then I'm going to go to page, and I'm going to say photo info. Now, you'll see that I've got an original one here, 20% brightness, 40% brightness, and 60% brightness. Everybody follow that? I'm going to check, make sure you guys hear me. Yeah, cool? All right, great. So now I'll go to print, and now what I want to do is I want to turn off print adjustment. Yeah. I could use sharpening on. I picked my paper type, and I'll go to my printer now, yeah, and I'll print this, and then I'll have a pretty good copy, right? I'll have this will be my master print photo. So when something comes out, I can look at it, and I can say, oh, this print needs to be a little bit lighter. And what I want to do is, if my print looks like, if my 20% brightness is really close to my screen, then I'm going to go with that one. Yeah. And I'm going to input 20% for my next print and print at that. If it's the 60% brightness, God forbid, is the one that looks the best, closest to my screen. So I'm holding this up and I'm looking at my screen. You know, I've got it under a pretty decent light, not too close to the light. And I'm looking at it. I'm saying which one matches my screen the best. Then I'm going to input that value in here and make a new print. And hopefully that'll get me a lot closer to getting a good print, okay? Okay, so yeah. So the print module, we choose whether to print to a JPEG file or your printer. Like I just showed you, you can make that you can make that master print by going to a JPEG file, or you can go to your printer. Okay. And for print resolution, that's where we input our pixels per inch. And most of our printers are going to be 300 pixels per inch, which is fine. Some of you have printers that can go up to 4,400 pixels per inch, which is really great quality printing. And if you've got like A3 or 16 by 12, that works really good for that. That's like the highest quality of most kind of like desktop printers. And we have print adjustment and color management. Let me just show you those now, okay? So let me go back to this image. Let me go back to maximum size here, and I'll show you the print job. So we go to our printer. I've never used draft mode printing in my life. I don't know why you would ever want to use it, because it's just easier just to make a print and then make your adjustments from there, okay? And then we put our print resolution here. We want to put that to 300 for our desktop printers. Print sharpening. We want to always do sharpening. Even if you've done sharpening in your develop module, you're always going to want to add a bit of standardized sharpening when you go to print, okay? It's just something that you do. All right, then you pick your paper surface. If it's matte or glossy, you put that in there, okay? If you've got satin paper, you're going to want to put glossy. When you open up a box of paper, it tells you how you should, what selection you should make. Read the instructions that come with your paper, okay? And then we have our profile. So again, it's down here, all right? And this is the important place to print. This is not proofing anymore. This is the one that the printer is going to, Lightroom is going to send to the printer, okay? It's saying you use the Epson 2880 Permajet Oyster paper. That's what is being printed with that ink set, okay? So that's what you want to do. And if you don't have a print adjustment, you turn this off. 90% of the time, you're going to want to go to perceptual, and then you just hit print. And then you get your print. And if you've got your monitor calibrated and your printer calibrated, you should be pretty close. I mean, sometimes it's so good that I go, wow, that's like magic. And if it's not, if it's a little bit off, you know, and I was like, oh, well, this is too dark. You know what I usually go back and do is recalibrate my monitor, because the other stuff doesn't change much, but the monitors over time will change. They need to be calibrated like monthly or bi-monthly, depending on the monitor and how old it is. Let me go back and see if we've got any questions. Answer that. Okay. And that's it, really. I mean, I know it's a lot of stuff. The 3 steps of color calibration, soft proofing, and then the printer and Lightroom settings. If you think there's anything I didn't talk about enough, please let me know right now so we can get it in this recording. Anything you want to talk about as far as using templates and borders, I could talk about. I know I didn't get into the layout because I've run out of time, really. But if you have those questions, let me know now. I haven't said anything about black and white printing. Mark, you're absolutely right. What do you know? What do you want to know about black and white printing, Mark? Anything in particular? Jeremy, how to add borders and margins? Okay, I'll do that. Mark, fine art black and white printing. Well, Mark, I suppose when you're in the module, right? Let me just switch this to, you're basically doing the same thing, but you're doing it for density and not color, right? So let me find another image here. Let me go back. I could use this one, why not? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Okay, so Mark, for like black and white, I mean, you get your contrast done, right? You make it look good. Whatever looks good to you. Okay, so Mark, you get your black and white looking like how you want it, and then when you go to, you know, soft proof, all we're doing is we are just like a proof copy in black and white. We're just looking at stuff that is going to be out of gamut, right? And it's mostly, you're going to run into more problems with color being out of gamut than having density problems. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like a whole nother class, is printing black and white. If they're coming out too dark, use the print proof, like I showed you in the print job, printing to files like this. It's like making test strips in the lab, right? That works really well for black and white. You just print the JPEG file and do your brightness if it's not coming out the way you want, okay? All right, what was the next question? How to add borders and margins. And Jeremy asked how to add borders and margins, and Keith says, what are your recommended borders and margins? I said, Keith, it's all kind of like the taste, right? Let me show you how to do your margins here. Let me get a different image. This one's got like, let's work this one. Like if I wanted borders on this one, right? You go to page setup and you pick your landscape or portrait and your paper size. Let's see if I was going to go through to A3, right? And I wanted to have cell size a little bit. I mean, you know, it depends how you want to frame it. I'm supposed to get something a bit more easy to frame. Let's do this something in a bit more standardized size here. So you do your margins like this. If you want image settings, I don't want to rotate to fit, so I don't want to zoom to fill. If you zoom to fill, let me just get this here, right? If you zoom to fill, then it's going to actually crop your image, right? So if you don't want your image cropped, don't click zoom to fill, all right? I'll just go through this one by one. So stroke borders, if you want a border around your image, you can do that. I've never used it. I don't know why you would want a border around your image. So let me get, is this a, I usually do like, for most of my prints, I do like 1/4 inch around, or let me just do inches, right? I do 0.25 on the top and bottom. And okay, the cell size, right? So if I do maximum size, right? And then I do 0.25 for here, and then 0.25 for my top, and then 0.25 for the bottom. Then I have pretty even borders, okay? If you do rows and if you do page grid, if you start adding rows, then you're not working with a single image anymore. I could drag another image in there. If you show your bleed, you can show the image cells, the margins and the cursors and the page bleed. Let me just show you. If I go a little bit smaller, you can see the page bleed, right? And that's the part of the paper that won't be printed. All right. If you wanted to put a background color in there, I don't know why you would, but you can click that and then choose your color, and then you can print crazy background colors. I don't know why you do it, but if you've got like a watermark or something you want to put in there, you can set up your identity plate and put that on your images, and you can edit those in here and put them in there, right? So that's also pretty cool if you wanted to put your watermark on your prints. You would use like identity plate if you know, like those big stock photos that, so put the big, you can put a PNG image over it so nobody can copyright your image, and then your watermark can be, you know, down here on the left there, or wherever you want it. What is really handy, if you've got paper that you want to crop, put the marks on there, so it'll put the cut marks on the paper, so you can actually cut those if you've got one of those paper cutter things. And then photo info will put the file name down there. Okay, so Marcia says, how do you know when to use perceptual or relative? If you've got, Marcia, if you've got a lot of colors that are going to be out of gamut, the thing about relative intent, the disadvantages are if you've got little bits of shadings in colors, like I say, if you've got someone with a purple dress on, and you know the gradations of purple are very fine and stuff like that, you don't want to use relative, because what relative will do is it'll choose one purple, like the purples that are out of gamut, right? It'll choose one purple, the closest, and it'll make that purple for all of it, and you'll kind of lose all that subtle gradation of color. Perceptual won't do that. it'll take the nearest one, and it'll substitute it without kind of making it. What it does is just desaturates so it fits within the gamut of the printer, right? And Relative just kind of blends everything together to do the same thing, but with the loss of detail. Just use perceptual first for like 90% of your prints, and I think you'll be happy with that. Jeremy says, my problem is using a lab and leaving a mounting margin. Well, most labs are going to tell you how much margin they want around the print, right? So if I go down here and I say maximum size, right, and this is an A3 print, and the printer says, well, they need a 1/2 inch all the way around. It's easy. You just come up to here to your margins here under layout, and you put in 1/2 inch, right, all the way around this way, like that, and they'll have that margin that the printer wants. All right. Is that it's fairly simple. Do I need to explain that anymore, Jeremy? Which is the part that won't be printed? Okay, so Susan, do you mean like with the bleed, the paper bleed? Well, if you look here under guides, let me just take the rulers off, and the bleed. Yeah, so when you get with the bleed on there, let me just take this off. You're going to see a little area like this area up top that is unprintable. Okay, it's usually the bleed's usually like not more than a 1/4 inch around the paper. Okay, I mean some printers you can say print full bleed and it'll print a photo on all of the paper with no border on it, but you tend to have soft edges with most printers, so I don't really recommend that. It's better to have like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, or 1/4 inch border around it, and then just cut it because your print will be sharper. Jeremy says but the JPEG doesn't contain the paper size. What do you mean by that, Jeremy? Well, you have to make sure that like when we're printing from Lightroom, like I'm looking at this file here. Go back to library, right? So I mean, let's take this file here, right? And so if I put my information up there, I've got my raw file, and it's 5,000 pixels. I know this will print pretty good at A3, even better at A4. And if I bring it into the print module, I pick my paper size by page setup here, right? You want to make sure your files print from your raw files or TIFF files or your very large JPEGs, right? But try to keep the pixel count up when you're going to print. We don't want to be printing with thumbnails, okay? So make sure your file size is big enough to print. How do I tell the lab the canvas size? What you would do, Jeremy, is you pick your paper size here, right? And if you were going to send this to a lab, you would go down here and you'd say print the file. I mean, print the JPEG, okay? And then your output resolution, and then you go to page setup, make sure it's your paper size, right? And it's oriented right. You go to do your borders, get your borders right. Whatever your lab wants the borders to be. You input those there, right? So you got it set up for the lab, and then you just printed the JPEG file here. Print the file, and then it'll save that JPEG as something that you can send to the lab, okay? And always make sure that the quality of that JPEG that you send to the lab is at 100. You don't have to do print sharpening when you send to a lab because they'll probably do it themselves. And the media type, don't worry about that because that's all determined by what type of sharpening you're doing, okay? Is there any more questions before we go? Like I said, I do have these webinars coming up. I mean, not webinars, these classes coming up, and I've got an offer for you tonight of 15% off if you want to get my advanced Lightroom workshop or advanced intermediate or my beginners and intermediate Lightroom. They kind of lap over in technology. I mean, in difficulty, the beginners intermediate kind of goes into It goes into a lot of processing stuff, but mostly it's going to be about just getting around Lightroom, where the intermediate and advanced class is all about kind of like the really artsy stuff that that I've learned over the years. Okay, there's the dates. You get 15% off, and if you look at here right now, we've got there's a coupon code here. You guys could see all this stuff. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in my Lightroom classes, these are actually links you could click on, and if you enter this code here, you get 15% off. Just click on these links here, and they'll take you to that web page with that product. Okay, that's it for tonight. Hope you guys liked it. Yeah, there's no more questions, so I'll see you next time. Okay.